So in today's video, we're going to talk here on Not Leaving Crypto about the difference between fiat money and crypto and why you might look into crypto if you haven't done so already. My name is Steven. I'm Not Leaving Crypto. This is a crypto channel that's not run by an expert who's going to dazzle you with complicated charts and make you think that you should buy into something because it's complex. I'm not going to try to tell you to buy anything. This isn't financial advice. This is largely educational. But I'm not a kid who's 20 years old who's pumping a coin because I think that if you buy it, I'll make some money on the bottom line. It's not a meme coin channel, as they say. I'm here on a journey, and hopefully you'll come along with me and we can both learn some stuff together, because I'm begrudgingly got pulled into this crypto thing and now I'm living it, and I thought I would share it with you and we can learn stuff together. So subscribe if that's what you're looking for. So we got to talk about the difference now between fiat money and between cryptos. Okay, now there's an important difference between the two, and the thing is, fiat money is literally fiat. The term fiat is a Latin derived term, and it means determined by an authority or a government. It actually comes from way back in the book of Genesis, from the Bible, I believe, and determined by authority. The world, first in the beginning there was light and it was good. That's the determined of the authority in the Bible. Now our fiat currency is determined by people in office, and when the Federal Reserve in the United States, for example, wants to print more money or lower interest rates, or just basically flood the market, the stock market and the housing market, with cheap interest rates and cheap money, they do that. The problem with that is that just by creating more money and raising debt ceilings and never solving any problems, our money doesn't have a value. And if our money doesn't have a value, what you have today becomes less valuable tomorrow. So it's important to note, like back in the up until the 1970s, when Richard Nixon took this country off of what they call the gold standard, the value of a dollar was pinned to how much gold costs. And that's to say that, and we could do a whole other video on the history of money and give you like I like to do elementary school explanations, because that's how I learn best, and you might learn best that way too. And then you can go on to your middle school, high school, university courses somewhere else. But that's to say like this, okay? Money used to just be a marker between two people. In the beginning, there was some guy trading chickens and some guy trading blacksmith work. And if the chicken guy needed blacksmith work and the blacksmith guy needed some chickens, they would do a trade. Eventually, though, the blacksmith didn't need any chicken because he was, had them in reserve. So he said, well, I'll give you a marker for this. And so that was worth a chicken. And eventually it moved on to central repositories, AKA banks. And banks had a bunch of, chickens. They didn't want chickens anymore. So they said, you keep your chickens, we're going to fill this up with a precious metal, and we'll know that one chicken is worth this much in the weight of precious metal, and we'll give you a paper marker, and then the paper marker will be traded throughout the community. And those were banks. They were all scattered. There was different banks for different regions, and eventually we got to a point where there was only one bank, the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve, these kinds of things. And, it was all pinned to the value of gold in the United States. Now, in the 70s, Richard Nixon took us off that gold standard. So now it's just easy for the government to kind of determine the value of things by printing more money, throttling the economy, lowering interest rates, doing all these things. But here's the main thing. It's 3 minutes in. I can't believe it took us this long. When you have too much of something, what ends up happening is it's not worth as much. So when you have too much money, the money that's in supply isn't as worth as much. That's where we get to the point where the money loses value. Money is deflationary. Cryptos are not deflationary. That's why a lot of people like them. That's why a lot of people are speculating that because cryptos and Bitcoin and Ethereum is deflationary, we'll be at a point in the future where, and one person, Rand Paul, actually already suggested this, and a few others around the world have, and some countries have already done it, where these cryptocurrencies will be actually a secondary currency to stabilize things to a point, because if the government's not stable, we need something around the world that is. Without stability, our minds kind of go crazy. Last year, remember when there was no supplies in the stores, and everybody went in there, and it's not stable for our minds to see a complete lack of every single product that we need to live our regular lives, like civilized, creatures. Otherwise, we're living like animals in a forest. We can't have that, so we lost our minds when it was not stable. People flipped out, and people like stability. So people like the stability of cryptos, and the reason that they're stable is quite simple, right? So Bitcoin is known as the big, huge standard that everybody knows, and Bitcoin itself is finite. There's only so much of it. And if you watched my video on blockchain, you'll understand that the way the blockchain works, it's an accounting ledger. So when two people want to do a transaction in a cryptocurrency, it checks both sides of the ledger to make sure that everything looks good, and everybody has a copy of the ledger, so it's wide open. You can view any wallet addresses so long as you have it, and see every transaction they've ever done from the history of when that wallet was opened to what it is today. And when people do those calculations, they're mining Bitcoin. They're solving a problem, a math problem, and getting a little bit of cryptocurrency in return for their efforts. Similar to if you said to somebody, hey, you got to move this mountainside for me because we're building this giant interstate highway that goes through this mountainside, or we're building a railroad. And if that was the case, and you managed to find any little bits of precious metals in between, you can totally keep them. That's a perfect analogy for what mining really is. You're getting a little bit of a reward, but this is a guaranteed reward, not a you might find something along the way as you're doing these calculations. So Bitcoin runs out eventually. The math problem ends in hundreds of years from now, so people know what they're in for. So they know that if they buy Bitcoin today, it's not going to go down in value if the amount of Bitcoin is actually limited. It's only going to go up. So let's go back to the gold thing here. Now, if you were to have a couple of ounces of gold, and all of a sudden there's no more gold in the world, and they can't find any more, and it's becoming more scarce, what you already have is worth more because people want it, because now it's harder to get it. And it's the same thing with Ethereum, and Ethereum doubles down on this. Ethereum doubles down on this even further, because right now there's people doing what's called staking Ethereum, which means they're taking 32 Ethereum coins out of the current circulation. They're holding it to build this new version of the Ethereum network. So when you take 32 coins out, it doesn't sound like a lot. Then you start to math it all out, and you realize that there's 250,000 people that have staked, if not way more than that. It could be 300,000 by now. It could be 400,000 soon. When you take these people and you stake the coins, now you have 8 million less of something that's in circulation. It's been locked up for a 2-year period. So now Ethereum is very, very scarce, right? And as we go down the line, as more people are staking Ethereum to help build this network, because they're getting what I call Ethereum rewards, which is really valuable too. I mean, you're just building a bank for yourself. You're now becoming a juggernaut and making money hand over fist. That becomes more scarce. And when scarcity happens and it kicks in, then that's stability, and that's going back to the gold standard, because even in the 1960s and 70s, before we went off that gold standard, people knew that there was going to be a point where there was no more gold, so they knew that the money was tied to the gold, and they knew that the value of a US dollar, if they really wanted to cash it in and go and get gold for it, was worth the price of gold, worth its weight in gold. And there's the term, right? So that's the main difference. Without me getting so opinionated on how the governments of the world run, you got to know that these governments of the world don't try to solve their problems. They just try to create more of them by doing the easy way, because governments are incredibly complex, raising debt ceilings. Or even our government was talking in the United States just a few weeks ago, it's an old idea, having $1 trillion platinum coin be printed, and then we could just put that into the government coffers, and then that would solve our problems, wouldn't it? The answer is no, obviously. It wouldn't solve the problems, but it would temporarily be a band-aid solution to something that could be a much bigger problem down the line, which seems to be a bigger problem down the line because we're getting to a point where inflation is happening. We're going to be in maybe hyperinflation times, and I don't know if you remember it from school, but I saw pictures and books of people in the Weimar Republic after World War I out in Germany with entire suitcases full of Deutsche Marks. Deutschmarks, right? Is that what it's called? And they were trying to buy a loaf of bread, and they had to spend thousands and thousands of their notes in order to buy one. That's inflation, and that's something that Bitcoin can help, and cryptos and Ethereum can help to hedge against. Does that make sense? We had some background noise, by the way, so as you see, San Diego is across the way. It's a hazy morning out here. That's what happens in Southern California in November, but it's beautiful. It's 60 degrees. I wish you guys were here with me. For all my Canadian counterparts where I'm from, I'm sorry it's cold. I saw pictures of Calgary where they had snow the other day. What can I say? It's a weird life, but it's a good life, and it's something that if you want to jump into this stuff, you'll subscribe to this channel, learn some stuff about it. Maybe it's something for you, maybe it's something that you're never going to do, but at least you understand it a little better. If you guys want to have a video on how to grow a small amount of Ethereum into a bigger amount of Ethereum, I currently have 4 people that I'm helping with that, and it's a risk you're going to take. This is not financial advice, not asking you to send me money, but if you decide to do that, I'd be happy to help you. Check that out in the first comment pinned up in this video. Now's the time of the video where I always say 3, 2, 1, click. So we look at the camera and we go, thanks for watching, and 3, 2, 1, and Click.